Youth means a lot of different things in a lot of languages, and often in the media, it means something negative. In fact, a study out of the UK said that 9 out of 10 stories about young people are negative, which I'll get back to later. The importance of this life stage is that it's in fact 4 different mini life stages. It's 4 stages, from secondary students to post-secondary students, to those who have moved out of their family home and are living on their own or with a roommate, to couples, to young families. That's all embodied in this research, and I'll be talking about that in a minute. When do youth stop reading the newspaper? I know it feels like we just got them started and they're already stopping. Well, actually that is the case. Remember that life stage model I put out? There's 3 mini life stages in the youth life stage. We start with students, they move away from home, then they become couples, then they have families. Those are the 4 life stages. And which is the life stage that's the biggest challenge for newspapers right now? Remember, don't forget the start early comment I made before. It's actually when they leave home. Dramatic change. We actually have, let's say the adoption rate averaging out over these 3 countries is about 50% of young people start reading the newspaper. 15% of those will drop it by the time they hit 24. And the biggest drop is actually between 18 and 24 that synchronizes with a life stage of leaving home. So in a sense, when they leave home, they leave the paper. Good news is coming, I promise. Good news is I think the answers are somewhat in here. I think there is a clue to what newspapers need to do in order to bring young people to the newspaper. And as Gavin O'Reilly said, we've always been we need to bring people to the newspaper before we can keep them in the newspaper. And I think that's a very important point to think about as we're going through this. First thing to do, you have to start earlier. Newspaper and education programs are very powerful. If you have children, think how quickly they are using television. Think how quickly they are using the internet. Think how quickly they're using other forms of media, how quickly they adapt to brands and learn about brands. We need newspaper company brands to be in that mix. It's really about not just telling them it's a newspaper, though. As you can see from those perception scores, it's about telling them what's different about newspapers. I think we can certainly send newspapers into the schools, and I absolutely think that's the right thing to do. I'd love to send a nice note with the newspaper that says, here's how we do things differently than television. Here's how we do things differently from radio and from the internet. This is where the credibility and the depth really comes from, and this is why you should read newspaper content. It doesn't have to be, it's not really about the format per se, it's about accentuating the content difference that newspapers have to offer.